Greetings. Let's talk for a moment. Today I want to talk about tracts. This is a term we use a lot in the SCA, and I don't think it gets explained enough, and I think there's some connotations to it that are both good or bad, good and bad, but I would like to help dispel some myths with those terms. So first of all, when we say tracts, what are we talking about? And the actual statement, that's an abbreviation or a shortening of track to peerage. We say someone's on the fighting track. That is nominally saying that they are on the path, they are moving in the direction of possibly someday becoming a knight. Or you might more recently have heard someone say on the rapier path or the rapier fighting path. And that, again, is on the path in the general direction heading possibly toward becoming a master of defense. On the service path, you would hear people say that, and that is, again, nominally towards possibly the rank of Pelican, and of course the arts and sciences path with the end title possibly of Laurel. And I've heard these terms used slightly more focused in non-peerage directions as well. Archery, for our kingdom has a grant level archery award that has a polled membership, hold order at the top of its ladder, as it were. So you might hear someone say archery track. But again, the idea of track, what that's saying is that the overall average of your efforts is generally pointing in that direction. It is no secret that I am considered to be on the services track. Most of my work is voice heraldry, and that is generally grouped under service. But that does not mean that I am only in service. That does not mean that's the only thing I do. Quite the opposite, in fact. I just recently received an Arts and Sciences Award for carpentry. And the carpentry I was doing was not service-oriented, it was carpentry-oriented. I wanted to make something, so I researched it, and I learned how to make it, and I made it. Pretty straightforward at that. I have an award for arts and sciences in teaching heraldry. Now wait a minute, we just said heraldry was a service, and it is. But I was teaching it, I had developed a curriculum, and it was decided that the repeatability and the process that I had developed in teaching what I did fell under the auspices of arts and sciences. And a lot of what I do has been used by other members of the society to teach in non-service areas, but they're learning from my service-oriented courses. So while I am arguably on the service path, I have interest outside of the service path. Now, how does this relate to you? And this is something I really want you to consider here. A lot of you, especially newer members or people who may be just getting back into the SCA, a lot of you are going to hear members say, oh, you're on the service path, or you're on the fighting path, or you should be on the fighting path, or I think you would be good on the rapier path. And those are all fair statements. It's a nice shorthand way of saying, that the average of your interest or the average of your activities point in this direction. That's not an unfair statement. But please understand, a track is an average, and it is a direction. It is not a walled track like we think of a railroad. There is nothing locking you into that at all. At all. And I cannot emphasize this enough. You are absolutely allowed. You may go and make armor for rapier, for example, and you can go spend the next year fighting. And then next year at this time, what if you decide, I want to take a break and go work on pottery? Go for it. I mean, I'm sure the fighters at practice will probably miss you, and you're probably going to get some smack blown your way for, hey, where were you? We had fun without you. That's the nature of the beast in the fighting community. I could say that because I used to be a heavy weapons fighter. But there's no penalty. You're not giving up something. You're pursuing something else. You're putting something on hiatus. You're doing a couple of different things. Suppose you want to go learn heavy weapons fighting. Okay, great. I mean, go enjoy heavy weapons fighting. Suppose on your days off of fighting, you only practice once every other week or maybe once a week. Suppose on Mondays when you're not practicing, you want to go learn sewing. Great. Does that mean you're not on the path of fighting? No. Does that mean you are suddenly on the path of arts, the ANS track or ANS path? I guess that depends on how good your sewing is, but no, it doesn't make you on one path any more than it takes you off another path. Again, when we say on the path, that usually is referring to a general average of your work. Now, is it possible for you to put a lot of effort in two different directions so that someone could reasonably say you're on two paths at once? Yes, bring a lot of aspirin. That's just more work than I really want to do right now. But joking aside, a path is a statement about where we perceive you as being, what direction we perceive you as going. It does not lock you in. It does not obligate you. And it doesn't oblige you to keep doing it tomorrow. You could receive an award tomorrow for arts and sciences. You could receive an award in sewing, in performing arts, anything you want. Does that mean you suddenly should now focus on that? Does that mean that you have to keep doing that? No, not at all. I mean, I know if you receive an award in Bardic, a lot of the bards would love to see you perform more. I'm not going to deny that. But if you win an award for a performing art, but your heart's in fighting, does that mean you need to stop fighting? Does that mean you're not on the fighting track anymore? No. Or suppose you're an artisan who also fights, support the army when you go out for the big wars, and all of a sudden you get called into court and are given an award for something you did on the field. Does that mean you're now on the fighting track, or does that more importantly mean you're no longer on the ANS track? No. No, you're still on the ANS track. You just happen to go rock on the battlefield as well. Do you have to be on a track? No. Don't feel like you have to fit into that mold. Don't feel like you have to do anything. You can reasonably just go to an event, hang out, socialize, and help clean up at the end of the day. Does that put you on any particular path? Not really. Does that make you an unproductive citizen? No. Makes you an SCA'er. You just happen to have a certain balance of activity that doesn't fit well into a model. Join the club. We're fun that way. I guess what I'm trying to get at here, and I want you to take away from this, is you're going to hear a lot of people, especially a lot of longer standing or older members, say he's on a track, she's on a track, they're on a track, you're on this track, or it looks like you're on this track, or if you want to get on this track. And that is a valid and proper conversation to have, so long as you remember that a track is how someone else perceives the average of your work. It is not locking you into a certain activity set, and it's not preventing you from getting into another activity set. And I cannot emphasize this enough. If someone says that you are on a track or you should be on a track, that does not preclude you from doing something else. So that's really the summary of it. I just want to kind of demystify the idea of tracks or paths, sometimes they're called. I want to make sure they're not confused with obligation, and so that as newer members hear that term used, it doesn't scare them, it doesn't make them feel like they're locked into something. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you at the next event. Goodbye and God bless.